What's up? It's Way Up with Angela Yee, and I am here with Dr. Christopher J. Allen, a.k.a. Sleep Dr. Chris. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me here.
I got to ask you, because we were talking all things Michigan behind the scenes. You're from Saginaw, but you went to medical school at Wayne State University.
Mm-hmm. Wayne State University School of Medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And you also went to Howard, though, before that.
Yep. So always, yeah. You know, it's funny because I have a lot of many second homes, and Detroit will always be my second home, but DC too. And so, you know, shout out to, HU,
Now, you have a Sleep Dr. Chris song.
Yes, I do. I do.
Who did that song?
It's just funny. It's a story behind that because I've been doing been a sleep doctor for about almost a decade now. And last 2 years, I decided to go into social media and just put my platform out there. I love talking about sleep. I love telling people how to get quality sleep. And I'm like, oh, you should just go out there and do social media. And so I started this 2 years ago. And so my birthday, which is June 27th, so it's coming up real soon.
Send them gifts, y'all. No,
hey. I know my Cash App. No. No, but for my birthday, what they did, they went out and I don't know if you know rapper G-Mac Cash.
I knew it was Montgomery Broad.
Yeah,
I was like,
it's funny.
That's
Yes,
G-Mac
it is.
Cash.
Yeah, it is.
I actually met him a couple of times. I was at Parlay, I think. I saw him there.
Oh, yeah, and it's funny. Yeah, and so they reached out to him and said, our friend is doing this, and so they gifted me that song, and I was able to do that. So first of all, shout out to G-Mac Cash for making a fire song.
Cash.
Yeah.
I was like, this sounds like G-Mac Cash, but I want to make sure first.
No, yeah, definitely is.
Dr. Chris.
It is, I know. And everyone, it's funny because people thought, I was like, no, that is not me. Like
they thought it was you rapping?
No. Yeah, when people's like, oh man, you rapped your own song? I was like, that is not me.
But let's talk about what it is that you do for a living and the importance of that. Because, I used to do morning radio for 18 years, right? I don't even know how long. 18 years I did morning radio, right? First at Sirius, then here at iHeart. It was really a blessing for me. People always would ask me, like, what is the hardest part? And I would always say waking up at that time in the morning every day, waking up at 4 a.m. and having to be like on point, go to work, and then also do what I need to do in the evening and get to sleep at a decent time. I was the type of person, if you wanted to go to dinner at 9, I'm like, I can't make it because I got to get some type of sleep. But talk to us about the importance of sleep, because we hear about it as it pertains to your weight, as it pertains to your health. But we used to believe that sleep is a cousin of death. But now people are like, no, you got to get some rest.
No, definitely. And it sounds very cliche, but it's true. Sleep is important. And, I always tell people Mr. Sandman wants his money. And how do you pay him? By sleeping. Mm-hmm. And even if you don't get the recommended amount of sleep, it's like you having a sleep disorder. And so if you're not getting that, they literally call it sleep debt for a reason. And so what I do, first, I'm a pediatric neurologist, but I'm also a sleep medicine doctor for kids and adults. And so any sleep disorders I look at and I make sure that they're getting their quality sleep. So it can be anywhere from sleeping too much, not sleeping enough, having insomnia, having a sleep disorder called obstructive sleep apnea. Mm-hmm. That's the things that I look at. And because the hardest part about my job, I got to talk to people about things that happen with them when they're unconscious. Mm-hmm. And so with that being said, I talk to them, I examine and give them a comprehensive exam and making sure that they know about sleep. And that's another reason why I also do social media too, because there's a lot of stuff that's like second nature to me, but a lot of people don't know.
They don't know.
Yeah, and it's funny because when I started doing Sleep Dr. Chris, the second weekend, my wife was getting her hair done. And the hairdresser was like looking at her. It's like, look, I told my boyfriend, leave me alone. You need that 7 hours of sleep. So Doc, I was telling him I need that 7 hours. And so that made me realize that, hey, I affected that one person. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people out there think that like when you are getting like throughout the day, they start blaming themselves. They're like, well, I'm lazy, I'm tired, I'm burnt out, and you can just have a sleep disorder.
How do you know if you have a sleep disorder?
Well, when you see a sleep professional, we go over a comprehensive exam to see if you do, but it starts at home. I always tell people the bottom line, especially, for adults, you need anywhere from 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Mm-hmm. And when I say that, a lot of people start looking at themselves like, oh no, I only get like 5 or 6. First, you give yourself grace and then ask yourself, why am I not getting that? There's many reasons why that can happen. But if you're getting that recommended amount of sleep and you're still waking up and you're still tired, then that's when you should talk to your provider or see a sleep professional for that.
Okay. And I always hear about the different types of sleep that you get. You know, people talk a lot about REM sleep. So can you break that down? Because I feel like I don't ever wake up and remember my dreams. And so I don't know if that's a bad sign.
Well, no, it's not a bad sign because
I'm like, do I not dream? But I know they say everybody dreams.
Yeah, so everyone does dream, and when you talk about sleep, it's pretty much broken down into two areas. Well, you have your light sleep and your deep sleep. And you always hear people say, oh, that's deep sleep. And it's broken down into stages. And so your light sleep, you have like your stage 1 and stage 2. They call it N1 and N2 right now. And everyone knows about REM sleep. That's like the old name. We call it stage R.
Okay.
And that's, I know, but they get, paid money to change names, but everyone knows REM sleep. So I still call it that, but still call it like stage R. That's how you know you have a real doctor. Like if a real sleep doctor says stage R, it's like, all right, he's on his stuff. So you have your stage 3, which is deep sleep, and you have your REM sleep or stage R. And those happen consistently throughout the night. And so when you're getting your quality sleep, there's certain percentages of that sleep that's happening. Now, REM sleep or stage R, that's where they say that dreams are happening. And REM, REM stands for rapid eye movement. Literally, when you're sleeping, your eyes are rapidly moving. That's why they call it REM.
Really?
Yeah. I know you hear REM.
Some people be sleeping with their eyes open too.
Oh yeah, and unfortunately, that is normal, and it's also normal not to remember your dreams.
Okay,
too.
good, because I was thinking maybe I'm not getting the REM sleep I need to.
Well, the thing is that sometimes, like when you wake up, you're like, oh, like it'll be later in the day. You're like, wait a second, I was dreaming about that. Now, with that being said, if you never remember your dreams, it's always asking what's happening when you're sleeping. And I always tell people, talk to your bed partner, because the hardest part about my job, I talk to people about things that happen with them when they're unconscious. And so like if I'm in my office and I'm seeing a patient and their bed partner's there, I'm talking to them. I'm like, all right, well, how do they sleep? Do they snore? Yes. And so it's like, okay, figuring that out, because then what we'll do a sleep study, which is a polysomnogram, just this fancy way of saying sleep study, where we see if they have a sleep disorder. And not just seeing, because there's a sleep disorder, and I always tell people this, snoring is not normal. And a lot of people think that, like you used to watch cartoons and like see people,
out loud,
you see them sleeping, see those little Z's, or you might look at someone like, oh man, they're deeply sleeping because they're snoring. But snoring's not normal.
What about sometimes?
Well, the thing is that, all right, I'm going to have you step into Dr. Allen's office.
Okay.
I always tell patients this, when you fall asleep, all the muscles in your body relax. Your legs, your arms, muscles in the back of your throat. So if that's your mouth and it's the back of your throat, when you're awake, airway's open. But when you fall asleep, muscles relax. And right in the back, it's small. So when you're sleeping and breathing in, this is the sound people hear. That's how snoring's happening.
That was good.
Yeah. But the problem is, and this is where it can come into a disorder, when airway collapses and it relaxes more, then there's no oxygen going to your heart, your lung, or your brain. But they don't know what's happening back there. So your heart's working harder, lungs are breathing in deeper, your brain's sending stress signals all over your body. Then all of a sudden, you wake up. Well, not you, your body. Sometimes you. Then you fall back asleep and it happens over and over again. That's obstructive sleep apnea. So those are one of those disorders. And to answer your question, now, if you're snoring, does that mean you have a sleep disorder? No. But if you're snoring, then that makes me ask other questions. Like, are you going to bed the right amount of time? Are you pausing and breathing? Are you waking up and still feeling like you're not refreshed? Those are those symptoms where you're like, okay, we need to get a sleep study and see what's happening.
So you had sleep apnea, correct?
Yeah, I know. It's funny. I always tell patients this, like I sound like a cheesy commercial when I say it. I'm like, not only am I your doctor, I have obstructive sleep apnea. I've been treated for 21 years. And it's funny because I found out in med school. So I was in class, and my girlfriend at the time, we're sitting in class, and they're talking about sleep apnea. She starts laughing at me. My friends start laughing at me. It's like, you know, that's you. I'm like, no, it's not.
You
And
snore.
it's, yeah. And I knew I snore because I remember being a kid, my mom like, turn over to your side.
Yeah.
So I knew I snored, and on trips, like people didn't want to share a room with me.
Ooh, that's
And
bad.
I know it is. It was bad.
Yeah.
Like, and so
You got to sleep in separate rooms.
and it's funny because you think from there, it's like, I need to see a doctor. I didn't. What happened, you know, I'm in med school, you're not making any money. There was this flyer that says, like, are you a young male and snores? I'm like, yeah. And I saw that you can get money. So I did that research. Like, I was one of their test subjects. And through that, you had to do a sleep study. And I remember going to bed and waking up at that lab, and they're all looking over me. And they're like, yeah, you got it. And I'm like, oh. And so they were able to give me a CPAP therapy, because that's one of the hard parts about a sleep disorder like obstructive sleep apnea. Mm-hmm. There's many ways to treat it. A lot of people know about CPAP therapy, and that those letters stand for continuous positive airway pressure. And that last word is the most important part, pressure. You know, you wear a mask and you keep your airway open where air goes in and out. And so that's what I started with. Mm-hmm. And I remember trying it, and I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
And
you have to sleep with like a machine, hooked up to a machine.
Right.
I had a coworker that had sleep apnea, and he had to like have this machine, and he hated that he had to do that. And
yeah, and the hard part about it, because everyone knows about CPAP or like that mask, and even when I see patients, it's like, hi, my name is Doctor, I'm not wearing that CPAP. I'm like, hold on, there's other ways. And so I always tell people, knowledge is power. If you know you have a sleep disorder, then what you could do is you get treated, but there's other ways to treat it. And with me, I was 3 months in using CPAP. I didn't notice a difference until I went on a trip and I didn't take my CPAP with me. And I felt horrible. I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, it was like a sixth sense moment at the end when I start looking back. I'm like, okay, there is something to the CPAP therapy. So I'm really big on people doing that. And that's why I'm really passionate in sleep medicine. Like I said, I'm a neurologist. I love neurology, but sleep is my passion. And, you know, and there's a lot of women out there that like, they blame themselves. They're like, you know, I'm tired because I'm a mom and I have this, or I'm working hard. But you should, like, if you're getting the recommended amount of sleep and you still feel tired, then you should figure that out. And if you feel like, you know, apprehensive where you're like, but I don't know if I can do CPAP, I don't want to wear a mask, there's other ways to treat it too.
Okay.
And that's the big part.
You know, another thing that is an issue is people who can't sleep. Right? And people who are like, my mind is racing, I have insomnia, I lay down and I'm just up all night, and then by the time I finally fall asleep, it's time to get up.
Yeah.
And so other than, because sometimes people will take pills for that to try to make sure they get some sleep, but what would you say to somebody that's like, I have so much stress, my mind is racing, or sometimes at night I just can't even go to sleep?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question because, you know, one, I always, you know, that's when you need to get like a sleep professional involved. And I always tell them that, like, my job is not for you to be on medication. Whatever I'm going to do what I can to make sure that we don't have to put you on any medication. Now, there's medications out there, and there's things that people will take. There's like, well, maybe I'll take this and this. But I always tell people this, you know, the bedroom is only for 3 things. And they all start with the letter S. So if you're sick, if you're sleeping, and we all know what that third S is for.
I don't know. Can you tell us?
It rhymes with Rex. And so if you're not doing any of those 3 things, you get out of bed. And a lot of people stay in bed, and you heard about bed rotten, and there's this in bed, but that can actually perpetuate making your sleep worse. So if it's more than 20 minutes, get out of bed. And usually when I tell my patients, if your mind is racing and you have those thoughts going, what I usually tell them, get a piece of paper out and just write down what you're thinking. Not even journaling, but you can journal and that's fine. But like words like tired, husband, job, whatever it is.
It's all related.
It's all related. You take that piece of paper, you fold it.
Tired of my husband and my job.
Yes, make sure you don't see that paper. It's like, what you talking about? And then you can put it under your pillow or put it in your nightstand. That's telling your body, like, look, I know we're thinking about all of this, but we're going to save it for another day. And, you know, that's the biggest thing. And so, and consistency is key. A lot of people feel like, well, I'm not going to bed and I'm not going to bed. The most important part about sleep consistency is the wake time. If you wake up consistently at the same the same time, then that's going to help you fall asleep at night. And if you're doing some of those things, because there's something that's called sleep hygiene. That's when I was like, the bed's only for 3 things. That's talking about sleep hygiene and making sure. Now, I said sleeping, I said being sick. I didn't say looking at TV. I didn't say doom scrolling on your phone. And a lot of people do that. And the sad part is that,
I am a lot of people.
Yeah. And then and I'm glad you brought that up, because the other part, give yourself grace, because, you always feel like you need to get to this part. You can see where the goal is, but then that's when you're like, okay, I need to do something about this. Because anyone that's listening, if you had that problem, 2 things: I've heard it before, I've fixed it before. And so it can happen. And just because it's happening before, it doesn't mean that you'll sleep go this way. I've heard stories, and I've had patients where this is going on for like years, 25 years. And they're like,
wow.
Now they're sleeping much better when they think they have insomnia. And it's unfortunate, because sometimes people think it's insomnia and it's not. It could be a sleep disorder like obstructive sleep apnea. There is like a circadian rhythm disorder, meaning that your body is in a different time zone. So you're naturally a night owl. It's like, you have a job where you got to be up at 7 o'clock, but your body wants to go to bed at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
Because that's how it's made. There's ways to fix that.
You can reset it.
You can.
Okay. Because I will say, getting up, like I told you before, waking up early every day, I don't care what anybody says. It has never. People are like, oh, you get used to it.
Oh, no. Well, the thing is, think about it, like your body, you have something, this is me put my nerd cap hat on now. There's 2 processes that help you fall asleep. There is like something that's called process S, meaning the later you stay up, the tired you just get. And then there's process C, which deals about the circadian rhythm, which is your body internal clock and with the sun. And so if you're working at night or you have to wake up super early, you're going against what your body wants. And so some people can get used to it and some people can't. And, it gets to the point where it's like shift work disorder. There's like our night nurses and our night doctors that like go to work at 7 and leave at 7 o'clock in the morning and sleeping when the sun is out. So there's ways to fix it, though.
I've always heard that sleep and weight is related to each other, too. People say that if you're overweight or you're having weight issues, get more sleep.
Well, the thing is that if you're not getting quality sleep, your body's in chaos. If you have a sleep disorder, so for example, I have obstructive sleep apnea, and with that, if you're getting like your body's going chaos overnight where your oxygen is going up and down, your body's in crisis mode. Guess what it's doing? It's holding on to calories. And so that's why I have people look into that. Now, say if you had a sleep disorder and you started getting your sleep apnea treated with the CPAP, will you automatically lose weight? Not necessarily, because if that was the case, you'd be like, CPAP would be sponsoring this show.
Yeah.
But it's good to get quality sleep because that helps facilitate weight loss. And then also, when you're not getting the recommended amount of sleep, your body's going in chaos where it's holding on to calories. And there's this thing where you have in your brain where you have this like cleaning system that happens at night where your body's not only getting refreshed, it's getting rid of all the toxic stuff away from it. So when you're not getting that, it clears that away.
What about cat naps? I've heard that those are really good for you, or taking naps like during the day. I honestly don't ever nap during the day, but we have a guy who comes in here and works, Mano, and he could really literally sit in the seat and just fall asleep while he's sitting there, right? And then wake back up. But people will say that cat naps are, I've seen articles about how cat naps are good for you, but then I've also seen the opposite.
Well, it depends on what you're doing and how often are you taking those naps. So, for example, like if you're not getting enough sleep, Mr. Sandman wants his money, so he's going to try to fall asleep. But say if you are still getting that recommended amount of sleep, like that anywhere from 7 to 9 hours of sleep, and you're still tired, that means there could be something happening at night because night affects your daytime. Now, to answer your question about napping, napping's okay. You don't want to nap too long because, as I was saying earlier, you have those sleep cycles that you go through. You never want to nap any longer than and when it gets over 90 minutes, then
you went to sleep.
Yeah, it's an actual sleep cycle. Yeah. So you want to have it
that's not a nap.
If you get a quick 30 minutes, and that's a good cat nap, that can be helpful. But it's why are you taking those cat naps? And if and the guy you were talking about, if he's doing that, tell him 4 words. You know a guy, so I can talk to him.
I know a guy. I'm going to have you talk to him. What about that feeling when you can't get out of bed, where you physically feel like you can't move?
You know, it's funny. It's something that can be naturally happening, but if it's happening frequently, it can be a pathway into something else. And what you brought up, something is called sleep paralysis. Like you wake up and you're up and you're moving your eyes and you're like, what is going on? I can't move your body. And then all of a sudden you can start moving. And that can normally happen. And sometimes when you have a sleep disorder, that can make it worse. There is another sleep disorder that's called narcolepsy. And sometimes that can be a sign of it. So for example, if you have someone that's excessively tired and they're getting that recommended amount of sleep, that's why you want them to see a sleep professional, because they can have that be diagnosed. And a lot of people, you know, I remember having a friend in college, and she was just tired all the time. And you know, it's funny, again, sixth sense moment, you think back on it, and come to find out later, she had narcolepsy.
Oh, wow.
And the thing is that, you know, you see it in TV, but it's really, you know, out there. And this is for people that are listening. Like, if you feel like you're just, no matter what, like you get good sleep and you still feel tired, because a lot of people think that this might be depression or this might be something else happening. It could be a sleep disorder. And a lot of people overlook that, unfortunately.
Okay. And lastly, temperature.
Uh-huh.
I've heard that you're supposed to sleep with like 10 degrees lower than what's comfortable, and that's what gets you a better sleep. Some people like to sleep, you know, nice and toasty. I want to know what your thoughts are, and does it make a difference what the temperature is when you go to sleep?
So you want a cool, dark room. With that being said, if you're sleeping fine, and you're like, look, I like it hot. Because myself, I like it hot. Like, look, if I'm at 71, 72, I'm fine. But normally you want it to be anywhere from like 65 to 68 degrees.
Okay.
That's the recommended temperature to sleep. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're not having any problems and you're sleeping warm, then I tell people that if you're okay, I'm okay. Now, if they're having problems, then that's when I start to look at it and ask.
Okay. All right, good. All these great. What are you asking me, Dan? What does it mean? Oh, where you wake up and you feel like you are falling, or you hit the ground. You know, when you hit the ground and you wake up like, whoa, did I just fall? Or I guess there's also that where you wake up and it feels like your teeth fell out.
You know what's funny? Yes, that does happen.
Yeah,
you know,
that's anxiety, they say.
I've never experienced that, but
have.
Even on social media, a lot of people ask me about that too. I was like, you know what?
It feels
You're
like
not
your
the
teeth
only
are
one.
loose, and you're like, what happened? Did my teeth fall out? Is my tooth loose? And it really feels like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that happens. And so to answer that first question, when you're falling, you know, sometimes when people are falling asleep and you're like within that drowsy state to almost in your light sleep, sometimes you get that arousal period where like you have that feeling and like you're falling and you're going right between it, because everyone says
that arousal.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, when I say arousal, you know, it's funny. There I go talking like I'm talking. You're like, what?
That's a real thing too, right?
So yeah. So when your body arousal, when your body is waking up between that transition, hey, you know, it's funny. You made me think about that when I talk to my patients now. I say, yeah, I was just looking at your arousal. Yeah, I literally said to earlier this week for a patient, yeah, you know, I was looking at your arousals during the sleep study. He's like, what? Wait, what? That answers that question for me now. But when you're in that transition of wake and asleep, and like you're waking back up and you feel that like falling, that's what usually happens, like, you know, with it. And so like that's normal. Even the whole, like when your teeth is falling out, it's just that like when you're going from like, I'm drowsy, now I'm asleep, there's some weird things that happen when it goes through that transition, just like when you're dreaming and having those things happen as well.
Now, Dan had one other question. About wetting the bed.
Hey, it's normal. Look, I talk to patients about that all the time. No shame here. This is a judgment-free zone.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Dan.
I actually, it's kind of like a weird scenario. So like my alarm is set for 6 a.m. every single day, but I'll wake up naturally at like 4:47 a.m. on the dot. Like I'll roll over, look at the clock, see it's 4:47, be like, weird, and then roll back over, and then wake up again at 6 to my alarm. Does that like mean anything?
You know, sometimes the hard part is that your body does have natural times where it can wake up in the middle of the night. So that's not uncommon to happen. And most of the times you don't know that it's happening. Like when I look at a sleep study, you can see those arousal moments, meaning that they're waking up. And
both of y'all.
Yes. And so that's just one of the moments where you see that it's happening.
Play the lottery.
Yeah, and the thing is that your body has like a certain circadian rhythm. So there's a moment where it could wake up. And like you said, but you're able to fall back asleep. Now, if you're just like, I'm waking up at this time and I can't go back to sleep, then that's where your body clock is. But sometimes you'll have that. It's just coincidentally, your body just knows like the same time that it happens. And the thing with your body, it's going to do the same thing at the same time. That's the funny thing about the brain. It's habitual like that.
Is it okay to press snooze like 3 times before you get up?
So my thing on snooze is that, you should put it at the time where you want to wake up on that, because if you're pressing it like so many times, it's like you're jump starting your body again. It's like, oh, we're back to sleep. Nope, wake up. Oh, I'm back to sleep. And so I would say look at that clock. And I know I sound like a parrot, but like 7 to 9 hours. Like if you're forcing yourself to wake up, your body's trying to tell you something. It's like
I gotta press snooze 3 times. It is like I set it in times, and I do 8-minute like intervals in between. But I do have to like set my alarm for like a half an hour before I have to get up.
Yeah, and the funny part about that is that when but you give yourself grace in that, because I do that. I did that too, especially during like med school. I would have the alarm where like, okay, it's time for you to wake up. And then an alarm is like, okay, no, you can sleep a little bit. And then that final alarm is like, look, if you don't wake up, there's going to be some trouble.
Well, thank you so much, Sleep Dr. Chris, for all of this information. How can people find you?
So a couple of things. I'm out on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. If you put in Sleep Dr. Chris, so Sleep Dr. Chris, like and follow. And then I have my own practice in Saginaw, Michigan, which is called Quality Sleep and Neurology. So if you go to qualitysleepandneurology.com, that's my practice. And then there's another click to Sleep Dr. Chris on there.
Is cuddling good while you're sleeping?
Definitely.
Okay, just want to make sure. Do you cuddle, Dan? You don't?
To go to sleep?
Yeah. Oh, that's sad. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate this conversation. This is going to help a lot of people, because I do feel like everybody has stories when it comes to sleep.
Yeah, most definitely. Thank you for having me.
All right. Ring the alarm on that. It's way up.
Look at that.
That's why